Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to TrepTalks. This is the show where I interview successful e-commerce entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business executives, and ask them questions about their business story, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Jessica Stellwagen to the show. Jessica is the founder of Bodify. Bodify is a CoolSculpting spa for body transformation. Their team of certified technicians offer non-invasive body contouring solutions like CoolSculpting and Morpheus 8 using the most advanced and effective technologies available. And I'm going to ask her about what these technologies are. Their mission is to help empower people with body confidence, which plays a significant role in defining well-being and self-esteem. And today I'm going to ask Jessica a few questions about her entrepreneurial journey and some of the strategies and tactics that she has used to start and grow her business. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today at TrepTalks, and really appreciate your time.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
So very interesting business. I know, I'm not very familiar with this category, but maybe you can share a little bit about yourself. What were you doing before becoming an entrepreneur, and what really kind of motivated you to go the entrepreneurship route?
So both of my parents were entrepreneurs, and I feel like where you grow up and who you grow up around tends to kind of change, follow you into your adulthood. Obviously, there's some people who buck the current and go against that, but our family dinners were obviously very different. I had very different conversations than most tables because both of my parents were independently successful with their own businesses. And I think my sister and I always knew that we wanted to run a business together, but our passions and our interests didn't really collide until CoolSculpting. So my sister was doing her own thing. I was actually helping attorneys build their practices through digital marketing and enhancing the client experience and figuring out how to kind of, market to message match. And one day my sister just said, "Hey, do you think you can help me? I'm working at this spa and I'm running it, and I just don't really have the sales or the marketing piece. And I feel like you could be really instrumental in that." So I joined forces with her. Several months into that opportunity, we're like, whoa, we should be doing this together. It's fun, it's fast paced, we get to help men and women, and we just really liked the actual business model. So we sat down the doctor and asked if we could buy the practice. He politely declined, but he did say, "Do you know what? There's enough fat to freeze for us all to win. Don't take my database, but go out there and do your own thing." And I just think, again, it was always on our hearts that we wanted to do something together. So we were very fortunate. We built a business plan. We went out and raised about $500,000. And then Bodify was born. Fast forward 9 years later, we're 3 clinics, the #1 clinic in Arizona, #4 in the nation. And we train CoolSculpting providers all across the world. So we've been very fortunate, and we love the business that we've been able to build.
I mean, it seems like there's definitely a big part of your success is probably, the business skills or entrepreneurial skills that you're bringing to this, because I'm sure there are many other similar clinics out there, but, it definitely takes the business skills to grow a business. But your interest, you mentioned very interesting thing. I mean, you're working at a medical clinic. Like, do you have to have some sort of a medical license to run this kind of a clinic?
So in Arizona, there's lots of aesthetic procedures that do require a medical doctor. For CoolSculpting and Morpheus 8, we just have to have a medical director. So my sister, nor myself, nor any of our staff are actually medical providers. I think that's one of the reasons we're successful. To be quite honest, I think sometimes doctors and medical providers, just like attorneys, they're very good at their craft and they're very intelligent, but sometimes they lack that business mindset and those business, skills that you need. And so I think we were able to hone our skills with CoolSculpting, but because we had the mindset and just the general understanding of business, I think it's one of the reasons we've been able to succeed in really big ways.
So I don't know about what CoolSculpting is. Maybe you can share a little bit about, people. I mean, you did mention that you were helping men and women. Maybe there's I'm assuming that there are more women clients than men clients, but maybe you can share a little bit about what CoolSculpting is and what Morpheus 8 is, and are these really just ways for people to kind of get rid of body fat?
Yeah, so CoolSculpting 100% is a non-invasive way to get rid of fat. So similar to liposuction, we're physically removing the fat cells from the body. We just do it in a non-invasive way. Even though you live in Toronto and it's cold, you may or may not know that fat cells actually don't like the cold. So if you bring a fat cell to about -11 to -13 degrees Celsius, and you keep it there for about 35 to 45 minutes, depending on how large the area is, the body actually triggers a mechanism that tells that fat cell to die. And so we tell the fat cell to die through the application of cold, dies in 1 to 3 days, and then over 1 to 3 months, it flushes out of your body. But unlike diet and exercise that just shrinks a fat cell, we physically kill it. You flush it out through urine and waste, and once it's gone for good. And so it's absolutely wonderful at non-invasively getting rid of stubborn fat.
That is so interesting. I mean, as you were describing this, I was having so many questions. So
I
you
know,
said
right?
minus 12 or -16, and you have to put it there for half an hour. So anybody who is going through this procedure, like, is it painful at all to go through this?
So it's actually, again, being in a cold country, you probably have heard people who have had frostbite, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
at first it's a little stingy and crampy and very uncomfortable. And then eventually they go numb. And then sometimes the unthawing can also be uncomfortable. Obviously, we're not bringing people to the temperature of being frostbitten, but very similar sensations, a little crampy, a little achy, maybe like some pinprick sensations for 5 to 7 minutes, and then you're numb. And then when we take the applicator off, we just do a 2-minute massage to bring blood flow back to the area. And that can also be a little achy or crampy. But other than that, people get back to daily life. Some people are sore and tender, but most people are surprised to the upside that it's not very uncomfortable.
And these results are permanent. I mean, I'm thinking like from a male perspective, and I think from a female perspective also. I mean, there's so many different areas of the body that can accumulate fat. I think for men, it's mostly around the belly area, right? Does
Yeah.
that work in the belly area, and are the results permanent?
Results are permanent. And I would say the most popular areas for male clients are their chin, their pecs, their abdomen, and then their love handles. So you nailed it, right? People can do the right things in terms of diet and exercise, but age, genetics, hormonal changes, a whole slew of factors can make diet and exercise in isolation quite ineffective. And so CoolSculpting can be a nice jump start. But yes, once those fat cells are gone, your body will not remake them. So we can say it's lasting. Of course, if I do CoolSculpting on a client and they go gain 50 pounds, well, I didn't kill every fat cell, and the other remaining ones will happily expand. But most of the people who come to us are, pretty stable in their weight, and they just say, hey, I just have 1 or 2 areas that just don't ever go away no matter what I do.
And is there any benefit compared to some of the other procedures that are available out there? I mean, you mentioned liposuction, right?
Yeah.
Are there any benefit? Is it just that this is non-invasive, that one requires more of a procedure, actual, operation?
Yeah, I think between, CoolSculpting and liposuction, the big, oh my gosh, why people choose one versus the other is 100%. It's the downtime, it's the potential scarring. A lot of our clients are 55 years or older, and they don't want to go under anesthesia. There's way more risk as you age with going under anesthesia. And so I think that's why people like the non-invasive route. In terms of other non-invasive technologies, CoolSculpting has the patent on using cold. So every other technology has to use heat, and that's quite ineffective because you can't really get a fat cell to the therapeutic temperature to set it up for death with heat that's tolerable for a client. And so it's much less effective. Once the patent's gone, I'm sure there'll be a million technologies, but for now, we get to rely on the patent and not, have a competitor in this space that I believe works as well as CoolSculpting.
Okay. Is there any side effect to it? I mean,
Yes.
I hear, when I do some research, I hear people talk about, if you haven't really earned it, like if you haven't worked out and lost your fat that way, I think last year I came across a technology where, they do some sort of a shock therapy, like they electrically shock your fats, and that gets rid of this fat like very quickly, I think. But is there any, like, if you're doing some, this kind of a procedure that's helping you get rid of fat in a, that you haven't earned, in so to speak, right? Are you harming your body in any way in the long run?
No, and I mean, it's a medical procedure, so there are obviously things that can happen, and we walk through all those potentialities with any client. But it's interesting because I think your mind is very much where a lot of people's mind goes when they just hear about CoolSculpting. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like stop cheating, like just eat a little better and work out a little bit harder." But you'd probably be quite surprised if you looked at the vast majority of our clients. They are doing okay. But again, as we age, just genetic predisposition, some certain things just make it very hard to spot reduce, right? You can go lose 20 pounds and it comes off of your thighs and your arms, but you want it off of your belly. And so it really is great at spot reduction. And most of the men and women who are coming to us, they're giving it a good effort and they just want a little help along the way.
Okay. Now, from a business perspective, I mean, this business, is it really about, I mean, you mentioned the patent for this technology, the CoolSculpting thing. Is it really about just buying the machines, right? Setting up a clinic and, I mean, having an understanding. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of a training that you have to go through to actually, administer this procedure. But besides that, is it really that simple? And then, it really depends on your sales and marketing, how many customers you can actually bring in. Do people already know about this, or do you have to do some sort of education to kind of bring them in?
Perfect. So let's answer kind of all those in different stages. So first and foremost, I think there's 6,000 CoolSculpting providers. So 6,000 different, providers that offer CoolSculpting, and the average provider makes about $247,000 a year. So do you have to be an insane marketer, an insane business person, an insane salesperson to win with CoolSculpting? No. But if you compare that to Bodify, we do about $4 million a year with our 2 clinics, and we just opened our 3rd. So if you want to be a superstar, then there's a whole slew of things that you have to do. And I think a few of my favorite things to highlight is, number one, we always believed in the statement or the phrase that niches lead to riches. So most med spas, you're going to walk through the door and you're going to say, "Oh, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this," which is great because you have a lot of different offerings, but sometimes in that offering, you don't have focus. And we believe that money flows where the focus goes. So when we initially started, we said, "Hey, we don't want to be the jack of all trades. We want to be the master of one. We want to be the go-to destination for CoolSculpting. And if somebody needs a different service, we're happy to refer them out." And I think if you think about that psychologically and from a business model, there's multiple reasons it works. Number one, all of our effort, all of our time, all of our energy can go to one service, right? We're not spread too thin. Number two, as somebody, if you were a potential client looking for CoolSculpting, you most likely would find it more attractive to go to an expert than someone who offers 6,000 different things, right?
Yes.
And so I think those 2 things really made a big difference. And then third, if I'm a med spa and I offer 10 things and you're a med spa and you want to send me a CoolSculpting client because you don't offer CoolSculpting, you're nervous because I might take your Botox client or you're this client or you're that client. But when I only do CoolSculpting, people are very happy to refer people to us because they know I'm not going to steal their client. And so we have a really nice referral and small business relationship with many other med spas because they know all we can do is CoolSculpting. But to your point too, you got to market. People spend so much money on marketing, but they don't have any back end mechanism that allows them to nurture those clients and to educate them so that you can move them down that pipeline. And then they come into the clinic and they don't wow them with an incredible experience. They don't know how to sell to them. If the person hits them with an objection or doesn't buy, they're deer in headlights and they don't know what to say or they don't follow up. And so I just think there are so many missteps. Kevin Costner is one of my, favorite actors. And he always says in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. And I think most med spa owners believe if you buy it, AKA if you buy the device, the business will come. And that's not true, right? Business is a contact sport, and there are so many things you have to do on a daily basis to do it well and to garner the respect of existing clients and allow them to keep coming in, sending in referrals and writing nice reviews.
I think that's true everywhere. I don't think, if you build it, they will come anywhere.
Darn,
you have
right?
you have to get a but is the general consumer these days, I mean, there are so many cosmetic procedures available out there in the market today. Is the general person aware of all these different procedures, or do you have to kind of convince them or convert them on this? Are they coming to you saying, yes, CoolSculpting is for me, I want to get rid of this problem area, you seem like the expert in this, so I'm coming to you? Or is it more that you are doing marketing and you have to do a lot of education that why you want to do CoolSculpting versus a liposuction or something like that, and it's like a gradual process of convincing people to go through this?
CoolSculpting has definitely had an interesting trajectory. So when we started 9 years ago, I believe that they said their aided awareness. So if you went out and said, hey, are you familiar with CoolSculpting, blah, 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 they had like a 30%, people said, oh, I know what CoolSculpting is. Now it's at 90%. I was speaking, the other day in Texas for an account, and my Uber driver asked what I did. And he's like, oh my gosh, can you do an assessment? Like, can you freeze my fat? So I think that the brand awareness, CoolSculpting has put a lot of money behind it. So unequivocally, more so now than 10 years ago, people do know of it. But then I also think that there's more clinics and there's more technologies that are available. So maybe 10 years ago, where it was like, oh, it's CoolSculpting or just this one other technology. Well, now it's CoolSculpting or, oh, these 15 other that are saying they're like CoolSculpting. So to your point, 100%, it's about education. 50% of people who do CoolSculpting have never done an aesthetic procedure before. They've never even had a facial. So they need a lot of hand holding, because if you just show up on their doorstep and you're like, hey, they're going to be confused. They're going to pump the brakes. They're going to push back. So there is a tremendous amount of hand holding. And I believe it's one of the areas that Bodify does exceptionally well at, because we nurture all of our leads and just stay with them on that journey until they're ready to pull the trigger.
And I do want to talk about your marketing and your funnel and things like that a little bit more. But before I go there, I know you mentioned that you were able to raise almost $500,000 to start this business. I mean, which is a big achievement, I would say.
Thank you.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I think that, if you look at Shark Tank, anybody who has a good proposal is always going to be in a good business plan, is always going to be light years ahead of somebody who doesn't know their numbers, doesn't have a plan, doesn't have if it's gangbusters, it's going to be this. And if it fails miserably, it's going to be this. And so we actually hired someone to help us build a business plan. Because my sister had worked in a med spa that had CoolSculpting, she was very familiar with the numbers. And so I think he was just able to really paint a solid financial vision of, again, best case scenario and worst case scenario. And then we just opened our mouths, right? We started talking to people and saying, hey, do you know anybody who's looking to invest in a business? And I think we made a very intentional decision. It's not the right one. It was just right for us. Is we only had 4 investors. I didn't want 60 people calling me, asking me for their $2,000 back. And then we also made sure that we gave them an incredible rate of return just through interest. We did not let any of them own any part of our business, because again, even though business is business, I didn't want someone who was in the tech space to all of a sudden be calling me saying, well, I don't want you to do that, when they have no idea what this industry is like. And so we just gave people a much higher interest rate and made sure that they didn't have any of our business.
I mean, I think it's a pretty big achievement, given, a service-based business to be able to get $500,000. I would say it would be pretty rare. How much time did it take you to kind of go through this?
And my sister and I laugh all the time. If you told me to go raise $500,000 now, I'd be scared out of my mind. And I think sometimes it's, it's a God thing, a universe thing, whatever you believe in. It was just every bone in our body knew that it was right, because it is quite scary if you look at it. But again, I think that's part of the reason that we just knew this was what we were supposed to be doing. We literally asked 5 people and 4 said yes. And it happened. We had the idea in September and we were open by January 23rd. So it was very, very fast.
I think that the one thing going for this market definitely is that, it speaks to the very fundamental emotional needs of a person, right? It's 100%. Vanity. Everybody wants to look beautiful. Nobody wants to get old. And a procedure that is kind of helping them move towards that goal, I think if you're doing everything right, there's definitely you're managing risk there for sure.
And I agree with you. I think that, there is a subset of people who are like, just accept who you are and love who you are. But the makeup I wear, the glasses that you wore, the shirt that you wear, I mean, everything we do on a daily basis is a choice that we make so that we can project confidence and feel better in our own skin. And getting rid of stubborn fat is no different. I mean, and they've done studies, right? If people feel more confident, their interactions on a daily basis are wildly different than if they wake up and don't feel confident. So yes, maybe the getting rid of fat can seem vain, but I think the implication and the actual impact it has on people's bodies and lives and mentality and confidence and security, it's mind-blowing. And I wish it weren't that way because it's just stupid fat, but we're just hardwired how we're hardwired.
What have you learned about your clients? Can you talk a little bit about your market, the clients that you serve? Is, what is the percentage between male and female? And, what are the areas that are most problematic that people are trying to get rid of?
Yeah, so we have a higher rate of men treating than most clinics, but that was by design, right? So when we opened up, we said, cool, we could have Bodify and we could go out there and market, or we could have Bodify and we could do a few things that would differentiate us. So one of the things that we did, obviously, was initially we said we were CoolSculpting only. But the second thing we did is we had a man cave. So we have 3 different treatment rooms. One of them is 100% dedicated to men. That doesn't discriminate, but you can imagine if you walked into a clinic and it didn't feel like you were supposed to be there based on their culture or the phraseology that they used or their decor, that's just one little seed that business is planting that maybe makes you think like, oh, I shouldn't be here. So we wanted men to know that, guess what? Just like women, you have stubborn fat, you are welcome here. We were intentional and we thought about you. The second thing I would say that we learned about our men and female clients very quickly is that people are not unwilling to spend money to get rid of fat. They're unwilling to spend money on one more thing that doesn't work. So we offered a guarantee. Lots of people in the industry told us not to offer a guarantee, but I said, look, I trust the technology and I trust my team. And as long as the person's the right candidate and has the right expectations, CoolSculpting should do what it's supposed to do. And if it doesn't, then I should do right by my clients and have a guarantee. And that 100% psychologically lowers that barrier, lowers that objection, and makes people feel very confident about trying. Because most people who come to us, this is not the first thing that they've tried, right? They're not like, oh, I woke up today and have extra fat. They're like, I've done every diet, I've done every pill, I've tried all these wands, I've done a cream, I've done a lotion. And so I think they're just exhausted from doing things that never work. And so they are hesitant when you say, hey, it's going to be $4,600, whatever your investment is. And so I think we had to work with their psychology a lot. And then I think the other thing that I would say that I wish more businesses understood is if you elevate the client experience, you will be blown away at loyalty, at positive reviews, at referrals, and that people are willing to spend more money, right? Look at Motel 6 and the Four Seasons. They're both hotels. They both have a bed. They both have a bathroom, but one warrants a much different price. And we have found categorically, because of the experience we offer, that people will pay us more than they pay almost any other clinic that offers CoolSculpting in Arizona, because that's just our brand and that's the reputation we have.
For sure, for sure. What is the guarantee, by the way? Is it like 100% money back if you're not satisfied, or?
Oh, you think I'm that silly? No. So of course we're going to have parameters, right? So first and foremost, I love that you just said, if I'm not happy, I can never, ever, ever ensure happiness. So we're crystal clear that it's results guaranteed. So if you came in and let's say we were treating your love handles, I would show you men who look like you and did the same plan and show you their reduction. And once you verbally say, yes, that looks like a great reduction, and you move forward, that's the type of reduction that I'm going to get you. It's not if I'm happy. People always want more fat gone, right? They can look totally different. They're like, oh darn, I wish it were a little bit more. So it's a results guarantee. You have to do the treatment plan that we built. So if I say you have to come in 3 times and you come in 1 time, guarantees off the table. And you also have to maintain your weight. CoolSculpting is not a magic pill. CoolSculpting gets rid of fat, but if you go gain 20, 30 pounds, 5 pounds, 20 pounds, of course, you're not going to appreciate your results. So we do have some parameters, but in 36,000 treatments, we have retreated 168 people for free. So not money back, but we treat the same area again for free.
Okay. I'm assuming that, most of your clientele, I mean, this is, I would assume, is more of a luxury item, like not, the clientele has to have a certain amount of or certain financial backing, even though that may not be true. I think people sometimes can, if they have $10,000 only, they'll spend it because, it makes them feel good. So you cannot necessarily say that, but this is is this considered more of a luxury kind of a category?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, but I'd also say, that business is continually evolving, and something, when diners clubs came out, like people had such a aversion to credit, right? And then they just changed the story. They're like, oh, if you come to a restaurant and you don't have to pay me and you put it on a credit card, like how credible are you? How trustworthy are you that you can pay me later? And they radically shifted how people felt about credit. So I would say financing, we use a provider called Cherry Financing. I don't believe they're in Canada, but they're very, very prominent in the United States, and people can make monthly payments. So, they can come in, and as long as they have an income and a credit score that allows them to, they can pay for their fat freezing over the next 4 years. And I think psychologically, initially my team, we were like, oh, we don't know if we'd like that. But what I realized, if someone comes to me and wants CoolSculpting, if I don't do everything in my power to get them to say yes, and this is any business, not just CoolSculpting, then I either relegate them to a less capable provider, a less capable technology, or the person does nothing and they stay with a freaking problem that they hate. And so I feel like it is absolutely my obligation to do everything in my power to get someone over the finish line, because otherwise I just relegate them to less capable or staying in this situation that they hate.
For sure. In terms of your costs, of course, you have your studio that you have to run. I mean, there's costs associated with that. The people who administer this treatment, you're paying them. But once you have purchased the machine, like there isn't really any incremental cost per treatment, right? Like you're using the machine, maybe there's some material that you use to administer the treatment, but I'm assuming that this business has good margins.
So the margins, as long as you know how to keep your price high, are exceptional, right? Like people that don't know how to differentiate themselves compete on price, and then you go out of business quickly. But for CoolSculpting, no, there's actually a consumable. So the CoolSculpting, who's owned by AbbVie, is very intelligent, right? You buy the device, and then every time I use it, I have to pay them money. So there are absolutely costs associated with it. That's how they get their recurring revenue. But there's a ton of margin if you do it right. Our biggest expense, of course, is going to be our labor and our marketing. But we, in 2021 is the last ones I know 100%. We were keeping 51 cents of every dollar, which is like insane, right? So we might not have, our top line isn't huge, but our bottom line compared to I know practices in the med spa world that do $19 million and they only keep 1.2 million a year because their costs are just out of control, which for us, they're not, which is something we're very grateful for.
So to me, it seems like you have kind of done this really right. If your margin is 51%, and you did say that you are on your third spa or clinic. Do you focus mostly as a business person? Like, is your focus really on scaling? Like, once you've figured out the business model, once you've figured out the cost structure, I mean, to me, it seems like it's really about just, setting up more clinics, hiring more people. And, in places where there is, there's population and there's demand for it, like, is that what you focus on? Or are you kind of, or is it that, other places are kind of have their own, clinics that are dominating that market. So if you enter that market, it will be a big competition and it's difficult to do. Because
we started from the ground floor and we were really able to take off, the entrepreneur hat and put on the consumer hat and then put back on the business hat. I think that, we did some things that were remarkably different than most. And so, yes, I believe that Bodify is absolutely scalable. My team is a reflection of our leadership, and my sister and I are obsessed with literally every interaction point with our clients because we think it matters. And I think it's a slower build, right? There are clinics that open up and all of a sudden you talk to them, they're like, oh, I'm doing 10 in the next 2 years. It's like, great. But sometimes those tend to implode, or you go to this clinic here and this clinic here, and you don't have that consistency, and consistency breeds confidence. So I do think that we built a little bit slower because we're absolutely obsessed with our systems and our processes. But to the point that now we have it, we're absolutely right. I can go hire. And the great news is we don't hire for skill. We hire for heart, right? I have the skill. I have the framework. I can plug anybody in as long as they have a willing and generous and loving heart, and teach them how to win in this world, because we have laid out that roadmap. And so I think that, is another unique part of our business and something that we've done well, because I didn't want to be tied to it. My dad was tied to his business. He could never go on vacation. He could never take Christmas off. And I leave and the girls do phenomenal, which I love. And that means that we've done it right.
That's really, really great for sure. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about your marketing. You did kind of allude to it. You have a system, and I would love to know what that system is. How do you kind of reach out to the people in the market? And you said that there is a gradual conversion process in the funnel. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about your marketing? What works really well? What have you tried? What didn't work? And what's working really great right now?
And people always ask us, if there's just one thing for marketing that you can do, like, what is it? And as you know, it's a confluence, right? It's a surround sound effect that works. It's someone sees us on Google and then they see a billboard and then they hear us on radio, and all of that makes them think, whoa, Bodify is calling my name and I'm supposed to come here. So I think we have a really great mix. I don't believe that I could extract one without everything else being negatively impacted. But the predominant things that we do that work well for us in terms of just generating the leads, and then I'll talk about the funnel, is pay-per-click works very well for us. Instagram and Facebook ads work well for us. Radio, we do talk radio, so 60-second commercials. Those work well for us. And then just organic search volume, right? Because people are absolutely out there saying CoolSculpting near me, best CoolSculpting. How do I get rid of fat? So we obviously have a very robust website that hopefully shows up high on the organic rankings. So I think the unique piece that we had to think about, that I hope most business owners will step back and say, she's talking about CoolSculpting. This makes no sense for me, but how can you make it a right fit for your business? Because there is insight in what I'm about to say. 50% of people who come to our website have never done an aesthetic procedure before. They're not willing to pick up the phone and call me yet. They are hesitant. They are gun shy. They don't want to be sold to. And that sucks for me. If they go to my website and don't call me, I don't have a lead. And so we said, how can we create something where people will virtually raise their hand and show that they're interested, because they're not just going to pick up the phone and call. So what we decided is, if you wanted CoolSculpting, one of the first questions you're going to ask is, well, what do results look like? What's a transformation going to look like on me? So we actually made our before and after gallery a gated area. So if you want to see men who look like you have to give me your name, your number, and your email. And so that's how we began to build our database. And now that I have your information, I can proactively and meaningfully reach out to you, versus sitting and praying and hoping that you're going to go to my website and feel inspired to call. And so once I get your information and you're in my sphere, now I can educate you through emails, through text messages, and through physical calls or voicemails. And so in the first 35 days, we have about 18 different touches for a new lead to inspire them to come in. And it's not salesy. You had mentioned it earlier, 100% educational in nature. And about 47% of our first 6 emails get opened, which to me indicates that people want the education and we're doing the right thing. If we had unsubscribes or bounces or opt-outs, I wouldn't be going on this this track that people are always opening our stuff because they don't know enough to know if CoolSculpting is right for them. And instead of having to go on the internet and keep searching, I'm showing up lovingly in their inbox saying, hey, you have a question? I have the answer. You're probably asking this question. Here's an answer. So we just really had to think about what their mind was probably asking and then give them those answers at a cadence that made sense.
I'm wondering if AI has any role to play in this. People want to know what they would look like, what the end result would look like. And if there's a software AI that can, they can turn on and take a picture, and that can kind of show them.
And it's so interesting because there's clinics, and not with CoolSculpting, but it's like Invisalign, for example, or T stuff, right? They can literally shift that for you. And my sister and I have always gone back because part of me thinks it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And then the other part of me gets nervous because if you're like, hey, Jess, this is what you created for me, and you said this is what I'm going to look like, I don't look like that. Then I don't know how I don't know how to navigate that yet, but I think eventually it will get so good. And not only with before and afters, but AI in general, right? Like creating content for blogs and just so many things we can use AI for now that are a tremendous asset to our business and have really streamlined and made things much more efficient.
And do you think that all this marketing funnel that you've created, and of course, you shared your value proposition around just giving customers the great experience once they come into your clinic. Of course, your clinic looks beautiful and things like this. When a customer, as you are kind of convincing the client to move towards, making the decision to have this procedure done, I'm sure they're looking at other clinics also. They are price shopping and things like that. What do you tell them separates your business? Everything that I mentioned, of course, you're highlighting that also. But what separates your business compared to everybody else? Is it really the experience?
Yeah, and I think so people are always going to move towards pleasure or away from pain. And so I think when you have differentiators, it's really important to kind of highlight both of those, because if you're someone who wants to get away from pain and all I talk about is brightness of future, I don't connect with you, right? And so you're on to the next. And so to your point that we have a man cave, that all we do is CoolSculpting, that we guarantee results, that we're locally owned and operated, that we train other accounts, those are all really great. But kind of that pull on that opposite side is, in a kind and respectful way, we let people know this is a medical procedure. I can have a pair of scissors and a hairstylist can have a pair of scissors. It's the same tool. You're not getting the same outcome. The only difference is if I go cut my hair and it's a bad haircut, it's going to grow back. If you do not do CoolSculpting appropriately, you are stuck with that bad outcome for life. And so I think kind of inciting a little bit of that fear is helpful. I just had someone today. She was going to cancel her appointment. She's like, I found someone who was cheaper. And I sent her a photo of someone's arm. And I said, you get what you pay for. And I recognize that price is always going to be a factor, but you're permanently removing fat from your body. And you only have one chance to do this right. And wouldn't you rather go to an expert who guarantees results? And she's like, you're 100% right. So we don't win everyone because sometimes, logic says, no, I'm not going to pay twice as much. But most of our clients, they get the analogy and they know that they don't want it to go wrong.
This sounds like this is really sculpting, right?
Yeah.
And what is a bad outcome? Like if somebody, let's say, is trying to get rid of the fat from their arms or something, could it be that one arm, there's more fat removed versus another arm looks like it's like asymmetry on two sides? Is that kind of a bad outcome?
I think the biggest thing that happens is the technology is built in a very intelligent way. So I'll try and give you a visual. So for example, when you look at someone's obliques and then you look at their fat pad, you have to mark where they have peaks of fat. So if you look down on your own stomach, you would see that you probably have one peak here and one peak here. And every time we have a peak, we have to place an applicator. But a lot of CoolSculpting technicians, they don't know this. they're not well versed, or worse yet, you have a budget and they let your budget dictate their treatment plan. So they say, oh, well, then I'm just going to use one when the person really needs two. Or, oh, you have a budget, I'm going to tell you can come in one time, but you really need to come in 3 times. So I think it's the applicator placement, the applicator choice, and the overall plan that really dictates someone's outcome. And a lot of people in the aesthetic world are young. They don't know how to have the hard conversation. They don't know how to have the courage to tell someone, I'm not going to build you a plan that's not going to work. And they do, unfortunately, silly things that leave irreversible damage on bodies.
So, so then you need to have a really good insurance, I guess, malpractice insurance. Like I'm sure you have it. I mean, I'm sure there's situations where somebody can come after you because they're not satisfied.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have an attorney who lives in my neighborhood, and once he found out I did CoolSculpting, he's like, hey, if you ever get sued, let me know. And knock on wood, we haven't, but I have a quick story. So my uncle was an addictionologist. So he worked with people that had addiction, and he was horrible at managing his schedule, right? You were supposed to be at 10 o'clock and he wouldn't see you till 11:30, and you would be so mad. But the second that you left, you would be happy. And I'm like, Michael, why are you spending an hour with people when insurance is only paying you for 15 minutes? And very callously, he said, if people like me, they're not going to sue me. I'm like, that's a ridiculous thing to say. But fast forward 9 years, I do recognize if you have a really elevated experience, if you have that rapport, if you get to know your clients and treat them right, if something bad happens, because of course it's a medical procedure, something can go wrong. I feel like people are much more willing to deal direct versus if we were shysters and not nice and, did all these weird things, and people would much more happily come after us. So again, knock on wood, I'm not saying we've never had an unhappy client, but we've never, ever had anything that has escalated outside of the 4 walls and being able to figure it out within the 4 walls.
I mean, that is so true. It's human psychology. If somebody likes you, even if,
Yeah.
that's like a life lesson that not everybody knows, but it's true. That's just the way people work. What does your team look like?
I love our team. So as I said, we hire for heart. I think that's nice because we don't have to untrain bad habits. And we also do 2 other things that I think are quite unique. Anytime we bring someone in, we do not hire CoolSculpting providers. We always hire for the front office because I want them to be indoctrinated in the Bodify way. I want them to have the respect for the team, and I also want everybody else to respect them, but I want them to understand the entire business from soup to nuts, because I think far too often the front office is kind of this bastardized child that's not important and nobody cares about, when they are literally the face and the voice of your organization. And then we train them, and if they choose to do consultations and CoolSculpting, we will migrate them there. If they want to just stay at the front, we do that. So we have a very intense training process because I want the words that come out of their mouth to be the same words that are going to come out of my mouth. Yes, there's some wiggle room in terms of, their charisma or their own little idiosyncrasies that they like. But if you did a consult with me or with my sister or with anybody on our team, you would recognize that it was a framework. Execution is obviously unique to them, but that's important so you can be consistent and predictable. I think the second thing that we do is we reward behavior instead of outcome. So for example, people are like, well, I'm going to give you a commission when you sell. Well, at the end of the day, you can do a ton of things, but maybe you're not ultimately 100% responsible if that person buys or not. But can I reward you if you follow up with that person 7 times? You bet I can, because I trust if I reward the behavior that you'll keep doing it, and I trust that the behavior is going to lead to the sale. So we reward behaviors much more than we do the outcome. And then third, we do a team-based commission. I cannot stand in the med spa space world. It is so catty, right? Oh, I talked to that girl for 6 months and all of a sudden you asked her to buy and she bought and now I lose my commission. So every dollar that comes into the practice, every single one of our team members gets a percentage of that dollar. That dollar is different. That percentage is different, of course, but everyone shares in everything. So everyone is working towards the same goal, which is great outcomes, getting the client to say yes, and making sure that we're doing right by our clients and bringing revenue in.
Wow, very, very nice. How did you, I'm really curious, how did you kind of learn these things? Like, did you get these lessons from like a different industry or business, or from a book or something?
So I think a few things. I think, my parents ran businesses very, very differently. My dad was someone who he wanted to hold everything close to his chest. He didn't want to train his staff. He was afraid if he trained them that they would leave and go out on their own and do it. And so he kind of always he didn't really delegate, where my mom was someone who was like, no, I don't want to do everything. Like, I want a team that's empowered. And so I just think through both of my parents, just seeing them and watching them and living, in their homes growing up, that I learned a lot. But I would say that Stephen Fairley, who was the gentleman that I worked with that helped attorneys build their practices, I probably learned 90% of what I know from him, because he was an exceptional business person and he always walked us through it. He always told us what he was doing. And I just had such a tremendous amount of respect for how he built his organization that when I eventually left, I said, Stephen, I'm going to literally swipe and deploy. He goes, have at it. He goes, that's going to be a great legacy. You're in a totally different industry. And if you can build with the principles that I taught you, I'm going to be really, really happy. And we have.
Wow, very nice, very nice. In every entrepreneur's journey, there's always mistakes made, lessons learned, failures. Since you've been learning running this business, what has been like a big mistake or failure that you have gone through, that you think you could have done without? And what did you learn, and what can other entrepreneurs learn from your mistakes?
Perfect. So this is where they ask this question all the time. And my sister and I have been so blessed. In 9 years, we literally have not had anything that's been like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So I'll talk about a few just anecdotally. But I do think one thing, we have a culture for our team very much that we generate leads. And so whenever we brought people in, it was like, hey, when we have leads, we're going to reach out, we're going to nurture them. But I think that there's a little nuance in terms of that I shouldn't say that they're not hungry, but if those leads stopped coming in, I don't know if the girls would go start knocking on doors or cold calling or going to networking events to kind of drum up business, because they've always been in an organization where we've just provided the leads. So I think had I done it differently, I probably would have done a little bit of mix of that. I love providing the leads for them, but I would love if they went out, on their own to events, et cetera, and tried to manufacture some business. But I think the biggest mistakes that I see for people, just because we coach a lot of CoolSculpting practices to do better, is they spend money on marketing and they have no idea what's working and what's not working. Right? So horrible ideas. Like, I'm spending all this money, but they don't send people to a landing page. They don't have a Ring Central number. They have no way to track if their dollar is actually bringing money in or not. I think people quit on marketing far too quickly. They spend $10 today and it didn't give me 20 tomorrow. So all of a sudden, I think that platform stinks when it's like, hey, it takes some time. I think in this world, when people get medical directors, I think they often give them a percentage of revenue. And I think that's a really fast way to tank your profitability. And then lastly, I think that people grow too fast and they hire too quickly. Right? Hire slow, fire quickly, and they just don't have the processes and systems. And then they wake up one day and they hear someone on the phone. They're like, that is not my vision for my business. But they were so worried about growth for growth's sake that they didn't do it in a way that was going to either be sustainable or replicatable.
Yeah, all of those are great lessons. And to me, it seems like, most of those kind of sound like, where the person hasn't spent their own time thinking about marketing, right? So a lot of the times, as you said, if somebody is more of a medical person, they don't want to think about marketing. They would much rather kind of outsource their marketing to an agency or something. And of course, the agency, they have different incentives. They're not thinking about your business strategically and things like that. So yeah, I think if somebody is actively thinking about the whole process and marketing and business, and I think that definitely makes a huge difference.
And I think pivoting is the other thing, right? Like we've been very fortunate. We've been in an economic climate that has been wonderful for the last 9 years, right? Is that shifting right now? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So I think you always do have to have in your brain and in your sphere, just saying, okay, what do I need to do to shift? Because it's like a Blockbuster, right? They died on the vine because they dug in their heels and they weren't willing to shift. And when they did shift, they shifted too late. So I'm not a big like, oh my gosh, always think about the future. I agree about being present, but I do think we have to have some awareness of, okay, what happens if something shifts? What's my next step? How can I get in front of it to make sure that we're always positioned to continue to thrive?
For sure. Now I'm going to move on to our rapid fire segment. In this segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions and you have to answer them maybe in a word or so, or a sentence.
Perfect.
So the first one is one book recommendation for entrepreneurs and why?
It's not a book, but it's called NEPQ, and that stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning. It will change your life in terms of your ability to connect with people and get them to say yes during a consultation.
Wow, and I've never heard of that. I'll check that out. You think it's like, in your opinion, it works?
Insane. I read that and I was like, I cannot believe I have been getting people to buy when I am doing so many things wrong. So it is, I mean, your tone, the questions, it is unreal what this man knows.
Wow. Okay. An innovative product or idea in the current business landscape that you feel excited about?
I love that ketamine clinics are popping up. Obviously, I know people have different vantage points of them, but I like that there is safe space for people to kind of explore using their mind and tapping into different parts, you know, of the world to kind of heal and also to be more empowered and to show up as their best selves. So I'm loving the idea and the concept behind ketamine clinics.
Yeah. A business or productivity tool or software that you would recommend, or a productivity tip?
So a CRM, right? I think that a lot of med spas in particular, they have an EMR, and EMR is not a CRM. You have got to have a way and a place that you house your leads and that you have different tracks. If you say yes here, you go over to this track. If you say no here, you go over to this track. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money to build it. But having our CRM is the single best thing that we've ever done and has made us, I mean, we've done over $35 million in CoolSculpting. It has made us a boatload of money because my team cannot reach out 27 times to every single new lead, but a system can.
For sure. Which CRM do you use, and like, do you work with an agency or a third provider who kind of sets it up for you?
So we use Keep. They used to be called Infusionsoft. I think they're very similar to HubSpot and Salesforce. I think they all have pros, they all have cons. You just have to figure out which one makes the most sense for you. And then, yes, we have a marketing team who builds the emails and the communication so that we can then put them in the campaigns within Keep.
Another startup or business that you think is currently doing great things?
That's a good question. I love Allie Webb. I just think that she is just innovative. I really like the concept of online counseling. I don't know if I love the word counseling, but I just think in today's society, people are very isolated and there's lots of stuff going on emotionally and mentally. And I love that there's a concept that people can get access to the help they need virtually. And so I think that's going to go big places.
Cool. I know you already mentioned one name about this, but a peer entrepreneur or business person whom you look up to, or someone who inspires you?
Yeah, great question. So he's in Australia and his name is Kelly Ritchie, and he was one of my first mentors. And if I could literally put a USB into his brain and download everything, he just has such an interesting way of looking at the world. He is a prolific reader. He goes to all these seminars, and I just think he is masterful at being able to take all these different concepts and put them together and then eloquently describe them. And so he has been massively influential in my life since I met him in my 20s.
Awesome. Final question. Best business advice that you have ever received or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
And I said this early on and you kind of had snickered, but in a good way. When I said there's enough fat to freeze for us all to win, you don't have to say fat. There's enough, I don't know, 20/40 eyesight for us all to win. I really think if businesses would just focus on cleaning up their own ship and doing right by their clients, they could focus so much less on the competition in the outside world because there's so much business. And we're a high-end business. You could be a low-end CoolSculpting provider and be equally as successful. You just have to find your authenticity, what makes you feel genuine, and stick to it and do it consistently. But I just think if people really took to heart that there is enough for all of us and that abundant mindset, that our world could radically change, and so would their pocketbooks.
I think that's a really great lesson for sure. I think there's enough for everybody to go around. And I think the more the more of a great experience you can give to your customers, I think the better, the more people will come back. So I think, yeah, for sure, that's a really great lesson.
And the part of the reason I like it is it stops people from starting. Like, look at what you're doing, right? There's other people who do podcasts like this, but someone's going to connect with your voice. They want to see your face. You're going to say the same thing someone else said in a different way, and it's going to change their life. And so why I particularly like that mindset is so many people tell me too, they're like, I can't open a med spa. There's a million of them. I'm like, yes, you can. Like, there are people who need your med spa, not my med spa. And so I commend you for going out and doing something that already exists too, because you got your own flair and you're going to be successful because people are going to gravitate. You're going to, have the tribe who gravitates towards you.
For sure. Well, thank you, Jessica. Those were all the questions that I had. If anybody wants to get in touch with you or wants to check out your services, what is the best way to do that?
Jessica at thebodify.com. I'm super responsive on email. I'll have a conversation. We can set up a text time. I'll do anything I can to help other people in the community and at large. So don't be shy.
Awesome. And your website?
Thebodify.com.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, those were all the questions that I had. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your time, for sharing your business journey and your successes and failures. So yeah, thank you so much again for joining me today at TrepTalks, and I wish you all the very best.
You're awesome, and keep doing what you're doing. It's inspiring.
Thank you.